So uh, I want you to just imagine for a second the sheer panic of checking your mail and seeing yet another brightly colored envelope from your lender.
Oh, those are the worst.
Right. It's a foreclosure notice. You're falling behind on your mortgage. The aggressive collection calls are just relentless.
Yeah, the stress is completely suffocating.
Exactly. And in that moment of crisis, the traditional real estate market,
Mm.
I mean, with its open houses, the staging, months of waiting for bank approvals, it's completely useless to you.
It really is.
It's like booking a luxury cruise when your own boat is, rapidly taking on water.
That's a great way to put it.
You don't need a buffet and a shuffleboard court.
Yeah,
You need a speedboat to get you to shore today.
absolutely.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to really unpack the mechanics of how that speedboat actually works.
Right. We're exploring this parallel real estate market of rapid response cash offers.
Yeah, specifically how they function as an emergency intervention for families who are staring down foreclosure.
Yeah.
And to understand the architecture of these transactions, we're looking at the operations of a local company based out of Riverside, California called American House Offer.
And it is a fascinating ecosystem to study because it operates under an entirely different set of, well, physical and financial rules than what you experience when buying or selling a home the traditional way.
It's like
I mean,
that.
we've all been conditioned to believe that selling real estate is inherently slow, highly bureaucratic, and extremely expensive.
Right, like it's just a given.
Exactly. But when you look closely at how direct cash buyers intervene in these financial crises, you realize that much of that traditional friction it's actually optional.
And that friction is deadly when the clock is ticking, right?
Yeah.
The moment a lender triggers that foreclosure mechanism, time stops being a luxury and instantly becomes your primary adversary.
That is so true.
So let's get right into the mechanics here. How exactly does this real estate speedboat bypass the traditional delays? Because, missing a few payments escalates to aggressive collections very quick.
Oh, incredibly fast.
And a standard sale can easily take, 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, easily. The standard sale takes months because of the institutional bottlenecks that are just baked into the process.
Right.
But a direct cash offer can close in as little as 7 to 14 days.
Which is wild.
It is.
Yeah.
And that speed is what provides the immediate funds to pay off the lender and literally stop the foreclosure tracks dead. What's fascinating here is the core mechanism enabling this speed. It's the complete elimination of traditional buyer financing.
Okay, let's break that down because most of us only really know the traditional route.
Sure. So think about a standard transaction. A buyer falls in love with your house, right?
Yeah.
And they make an offer. But that offer is almost universally contingent on them securing a 30-year mortgage from a bank. The moment that happens, you are no longer operating on your timeline. You are entirely subject to the bank's underwriting timeline.
Which is notoriously slow.
Exactly. The lender has to conduct a forensic deep dive into the buyer's finances, which takes weeks. They mandate extensive property inspections.
Oh, yeah.
And they require financing contingencies. If the buyer's loan falls through, say, 2 days before closing because they, bought a new car and ruined their debt-to-income ratio,
Oh, my gosh.
the entire deal collapses. You are back to square one, but that foreclosure clock, it hasn't stopped.
Wait, hold on. Let's talk about one of those major institutional bottlenecks for a second, the appraisal.
Okay.
I always assumed an appraisal was like a strict legal requirement. You're telling me it's mechanically possible to just skip it?
Yeah, you really can.
Because I thought you couldn't transfer a piece of real estate without some official state or county entity saying, yes, this house is worth exactly this much.
That is easily one of the most common misconceptions in real estate. Yeah. The county recorder's office doesn't care what you sell your house for as long as the transfer paperwork is correct. An appraisal is absolutely not a legal requirement to transfer a deed.
Huh.
It is purely a risk management tool demanded by the lender.
Okay, so it's just the bank protecting its own money.
Precisely. If a bank is going to lend a buyer, say, $400,000, they need mathematical certainty that the physical asset securing that loan is actually worth $400,000.
Right, that makes sense.
If the buyer defaults a year later, the bank needs to know they can foreclose, sell the house, and recoup their money. But in a direct cash sale,
There is no lender.
exactly, there is no lender. The buyer is deploying their own capital. Because there is no traditional bank mortgage, that entire appraisal bottleneck just evaporates.
Wow.
The cash buyer determines what the property is worth to them internally, makes the offer, and if the seller accepts, they proceed straight to closing.
That is a massive realization. because removing the bank's underwriting department literally removes all the red tape.
It really does.
It's not that cash buyers are circumventing the law. They are just playing a game that doesn't involve the most bureaucratic player on the board.
And for a homeowner who is staring down a foreclosure auction in, Riverside, California, removing that bureaucracy isn't just a convenience.
Right, it's survival.
It is a vital lifeline. You cannot outpace a legal foreclosure proceeding if you are waiting on a bank underwriter in another state to approve some stranger's loan.
But, surviving that timeline assumes you have a pristine, camera-ready house to show in the first place.
Very true.
Which brings up a completely different reality for someone facing foreclosure. The sources point out something really crucial here. Foreclosures aren't just caused by the stereotypical situations we usually imagine.
Like job loss or medical bankruptcy.
Right. There are massive, complicated life events forcing these sales, and they heavily impact the physical condition of the property.
Oh, absolutely. We see a wide array of catalysts driving these distressed situations.
Like what?
Well, sudden relocations for work are incredibly common. A family is forced to move across the country immediately. They cannot afford to carry 2 mortgages.
Oh, yeah, that would be impossible.
Right, and so the empty house back home becomes a ticking time bomb. Then you have inherited properties.
Right, someone passes away.
Yeah, they pass away and leave a family home to their children, but it's not always a windfall.
Because of the condition.
Exactly. The house might require massive, costly structural repairs, or it might be anchored by tens of thousands of dollars in back taxes or liens.
Which basically turns a family inheritance into a crushing financial liability overnight.
Exactly. It threatens the heir's own financial stability. And then there is divorce, which the texts highlight as a major driver of potential foreclosures.
Man, divorce has to be one of the most brutal catalysts for this.
It is.
You suddenly have a household income sliced in half. One person usually moves out, but both are still, legally tied to the mortgage.
Yes, exactly.
There is this intense, desperate need to quickly liquidate the shared asset just to split the proceeds and sever the financial tie.
And divorce introduces severe time constraints compounded by just extreme emotional pressure.
I can't even imagine.
And in almost all of these scenarios, whether it's a bitter divorce, a sudden cross-country relocation, a burdensome inheritance, the property itself is rarely in pristine condition.
Right.
There is usually years of deferred maintenance. There might be foundational cracks, roof leaks, maybe fire damage, or severe tenant damage if the property was being used as a rental.
Right. And if you try to sell a damaged house the traditional way, buyers are incredibly picky.
Oh, they want everything perfect.
Right. They'll demand you fix the roof, replace the carpets, or paint the walls before they even consider closing. But if you are already facing foreclosure, you have zero liquidity to hire contractors.
None at all.
It's like, okay, you wouldn't pay for a premium $200 detail on a car that you know is getting repossessed tomorrow.
That is a perfect analogy.
That is just pouring resources you don't have into an asset you're going to lose anyway.
That analogy perfectly captures the financial trap. You're being asked to invest capital to save an asset that is actively draining your capital.
Exactly.
This is where the concept of the as-is lifeline becomes really critical in this parallel market.
Right. Selling it just the way it is.
Yes. Direct cash buyers, like American House offer, they purchase homes completely unconditionally as is. They explicitly ignore cosmetic flaws.
Oh.
They absorb the risk of foundational issues, water damage, and unpermitted additions. They will buy single-family homes, condos, townhouses, and multifamily properties regardless of the physical decay.
I mean, the psychological relief of that has to be just immense.
The source material places a huge emphasis on that psychological benefit. It's really the value of certainty.
Right.
Selling as is means the seller doesn't spend a single dollar on contractor repairs. They don't even have to clean the property.
Not even clean it.
Yep. Think about an inherited hoarder house, right? The seller doesn't have to spend weekends hauling away old furniture or paying for dumpsters.
Which is exhausting.
Removing that physical labor and that upfront financial output removes a massive layer of stress from a family that is already operating in crisis mode.
Okay, so the cash buyer takes on all the physical risk of, say, a damaged foundation, and they completely skip the appraisal process to guarantee a 7-day close.
Exactly.
But that level of extreme convenience cannot possibly be free. we have to talk about the financial ledger here, because avoiding the traditional market has to impact the bottom line, right? What is the seller actually paying for this speed?
Well, to understand the true cost, we have to meticulously break down the hidden math of a traditional real estate transaction.
Okay, let's do it.
Most people focus entirely on the top-line sale price, but they ignore the massive bleed of equity that happens before the check is even cut.
Let's put real numbers to this. Let's say a homeowner in Riverside has a house that might theoretically sell for $400,000 on the open market, assuming it was in good condition.
Okay, let's run that traditional ledger. First, you engage a real estate agent, which means you are typically committing to a standard 6% commission on that final sale price.
6% of $400,000, that is $24,000 just vaporized immediately.
Right off the top. Then you factor in traditional closing costs, escrow fees, and title insurance, which often eat up another 2 to 3%.
Okay.
So there's another $8,000 to $12,000. And if the buyer demands concessions after the inspection, maybe they want a $5,000 credit for an aging HVAC system that comes out of your pocket.
Right, and then you have holding costs.
Yes, holding costs.
Those are the silent killers. Because if the house sits on the market for 3 months, you are still paying the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and the utilities for those 90 days.
Exactly. So if your monthly carrying cost is $2,000, a 3-month listing period drains another $6,000 of your equity.
Wow.
When you add up the commissions, closing fees, concessions, staging costs, and holding costs, selling that $400,000 house traditionally could easily cost you $40,000 to $50,000 in lost equity.
And if you are facing foreclosure, you likely don't have $50,000 in equity to begin with.
Exactly.
You might be underwater or just barely breaking even with what you owe the bank. Dodging that 6% commission alone means keeping a significant chunk of money that is desperately needed just to satisfy the lender and escape the debt trap.
Selling directly to a cash buyer eliminates that 6% commission entirely. There are no agent fees.
That's huge.
Furthermore, the sources indicate that reputable direct buyers cover the closing costs too.
Oh, really?
Yes. The cash offer they present is the actual net cash the seller receives. This allows a homeowner in distress to calculate with absolute precision whether the offer will clear the remaining mortgage balance.
But how does the cash buyer actually calculate that offer? Like, if they aren't using a bank appraisal, they aren't just guessing a number out of thin air.
No, not at all.
How do they know what a damaged house is worth to them?
They rely on a metric called after repair value, or ARV.
Yeah, you're okay.
The local buyer assesses the property and calculates what the home would be worth on the open market if it were fully renovated to modern standards.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then they work backward. They subtract their estimated repair costs, which they calculate meticulously, and then they subtract their required profit margin.
Gotcha.
The number they land on is the cash offer. It's a purely mathematical formula based on the potential of the asset, not its current distressed state.
That makes total sense. They are buying the future value minus the cost to get it there.
Exactly.
Now, as powerful as this tool is, the materials do point out that cash offers aren't the only option on the table for stopping a foreclosure, right?
No, they are not. And the sources provide really important context here. Homeowners can explore alternatives like loan modifications.
Where you negotiate with the lender.
Right. You attempt to negotiate new, more favorable terms with your current lender to catch up on payments. There are also short sales, where you convince the bank to let you sell the home for less than the outstanding mortgage balance.
Okay.
And in some cases, refinancing is an option.
But, I mean, those sound like they put you right back in the bureaucratic waiting room.
That is the critical distinction. A cash offer is just one tool among several, but it is often the most definitive one when immediate liquidity is non-negotiable.
Because the clock is ticking.
Exactly. Loan modifications and short sales require months of agonizing negotiation with a bank that holds absolutely all of the leverage.
Right.
A short sale can drag on for half a year and still be denied at the very last minute. A direct cash sale puts the control back in the seller's hands with immediate execution.
Okay, I see the strategic value there. But I have to step in here and raise a major critical thinking flag.
Okay, go for it.
If someone is deeply desperate, the bank is calling, they are navigating a nasty divorce, the roof is leaking, they are in an incredibly vulnerable position.
We are.
Aren't they the perfect target for exploitation? Like, how do we know these cash buyers aren't just swooping in like vultures feeding on families in crisis and throwing out insulting lowball offers.
That is the exact risk of this parallel market, and it
Yeah.
is precisely why the source material heavily emphasizes the safeguard of local expertise.
Okay.
The cash buying industry right now is completely flooded with massive, faceless national entities, hedge funds, and iBuyer algorithms.
Oh, yeah, you see ads for them everywhere.
Right. These national conglomerates blast automated, sight-unseen lowball offers across the country based on flawed desktop data.
So how is a local company like American House offer different? Does geographic proximity actually protect the seller?
Local knowledge acts as an anchor to reality, both mathematically and ethically. Well, a company based in Riverside understands the microeconomics of the Inland Empire market. They know the difference in value between two neighborhoods separated by a single highway.
Right, an algorithm wouldn't catch that.
Exactly. And more importantly, a local company relies entirely on its reputation within the community. The sources point out that a localized approach provides accurate valuations based on granular data, emphasizing transparency and fairness.
That makes sense.
But to really understand this dynamic, you have to look at the fundamental trade-off the seller is making here.
The trade-off between top dollar and immediate speed.
Exactly. This isn't about tricking anyone. It is a conscious, calculated exchange. The seller is trading maximum theoretical market value for absolute certainty, zero repair costs, and instantaneous financial relief.
Which is what they need.
Right. If you have the luxury of time, the capital to fix your foundation, the patience to stage your home, and 6 months to wait, you will absolutely get a higher top-line sale price on the traditional market.
But theoretical market value is completely useless to you if the bank is auctioning your house on the courthouse steps next Tuesday.
Exactly. Choosing a reputable local buyer over an automated national algorithm is how sellers protect themselves while executing that necessary trade-off.
Right.
They accept a lower offer, but they shed all the risk, all the holding costs, and all the commissions.
And a huge part of that frictionless experience comes down to the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
We mentioned the red tape earlier, but the sources actually detail just how simplified this gets,
It is remarkably streamlined compared to a traditional closing binder.
which can feel like reading a novel.
Oh yeah, it's exhausting. Because there is no bank underwriting involved, the paperwork generally consists of just a straightforward purchase agreement and standard state closing documents, which the local buyer typically facilitates through an established escrow company.
So no weird surprises.
No. There are no financing contingencies to track, no appraisal addendums to negotiate, and no post-inspection requests for repairs. It is quite literally a direct transfer of ownership for cash.
Which brings us to the ultimate aftermath. We've dissected the timeline, the physical condition, the financial ledger, and the local safeguards. But what happens after the ink dries and the keys are handed over? Like, what is the lasting impact for the family?
The most crucial long-term takeaway from these sources is really about protecting the future.
Okay.
Stopping the foreclosure via a rapid cash sale doesn't just solve an immediate logistical problem, it serves as a firewall for the seller's long-term credit profile.
Because having a foreclosure on your record is basically a financial scarlet letter.
It is devastating. A finalized foreclosure will anchor your credit score for up to 7 years.
7 years, wow.
Yes. It severely restricts your ability to rent a decent apartment, it skyrockets the interest rates you'll pay on a car loan, and it completely disqualifies you from buying another home for nearly a decade.
That's brutal.
Employers in certain sectors even run credit checks, so it could affect your job. By executing a rapid cash sale, utilizing the proceeds to pay off the lender in full, and successfully avoiding that official foreclosure mark, the seller preserves their ability to function in the modern economy.
They get to hit reset instead of game over.
Exactly.
You aren't just saving yourself from losing the house, you are literally saving your next 7 years.
It is a profound mechanism for financial preservation.
It really is. And I want to connect this directly back to you listening right now. Even if you are comfortably paying your mortgage on time, even if your house is in pristine condition and you never plan to sell, understanding this mechanism is an incredibly illuminating peek behind the curtain of real estate.
It really is.
It reveals how alternative, hyper-fast markets operate entirely parallel to the traditional housing market you see advertised on TV or on those, glossy neighborhood flyers.
It exposes the underlying structures of how property and capital actually move when the institutional barriers, the banks, the agents, the inspectors are stripped away. It shows you the raw mechanics of real estate.
It really does. And it leaves me with this final lingering thought for you to ponder long after we sign off today.
What's that?
Well, if a direct local cash buyer can streamline a real estate transaction down to just 7 days, utilizing a simple purchase agreement, requiring zero staging, and proving that mandatory appraisals are largely an illusion. Why has the traditional real estate industry managed to convince us that selling a home absolutely must take months and cost a mandatory 6% in commission?
That is a very good question.
Right, like is the traditional market artificially complex just to justify its own existence and its massive fees?
When you look at how efficiently the alternative market operates in a crisis, it certainly forces you to view the traditional everyday processes through a much more critical
It
lens.
turns out when the ship is sinking, you don't actually have to wait for the cruise director to tell you how to leave. You can just jump in the speedboat.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.